Hi, I wanted to welcome you to the Divorce Planning Podcast. I'm Carri Goldring, and I'm in the mortgage business, and I do planning pre-divorce for people who are either going to refinance their home, do an equity buyout, or plan to purchase a new home and make sure that everything in the divorce decree is worded properly and the numbers and the planning is taken care of so that you can go through the underwriting process smoothly. And I would like to introduce you to other people who are interested in the divorce planning process so you can get a real education of what's involved. Hope you enjoy. Hi, today I have with me Toby Beach, who is a therapist who not only does private practice, but also works with the collaborative divorce group on the main divorce team. So Toby, first I want to say hi and have you introduce yourself.
Hi, Carrie. I'm Toby Beach. I'm a therapist with a practice in Birmingham, and I've been practicing I'd say, probably about 12 years. And I have a general practice. I have my voluntary therapy clients. I see kids, adults, couples, families, a mix. I'm also a divorce coach on a collaborative divorce team. And then I also do court work as like a family therapist, co-parenting therapist, and roles like that.
You have a lot on your plate.
It is. It's a lot of different hats, and
A
but I
lot.
like it because it's never the same thing, and I like different aspects of each facet of the practice.
That makes sense. And where I end up working with you is on the collaborative side. And I know the whole mental health social worker always gets like that weird, like, I don't need therapy. We're not fighting. I had a client yesterday I was talking to, and they're in the collaborative process. And I was asking her, well, who's your financial person? And I said, and who is like the coach or the mental health person? She goes, oh, we get along. We don't need that. We don't have one of those. So I
Yeah.
thought maybe you could talk about, besides all these different hats you wear and what you do, but what role do you play in the collaborative environment? And then why is it good that you have mental health background, but you're not analyzing people or giving them therapy sessions? I think
Right.
it's very confusing.
Right. And there is a difference. When I work with a collaborative divorce, a couple getting divorced through the collaborative process is, sometimes they have their own therapist. Sometimes they are in individual therapy on their own. Sometimes they've been to a marriage counselor, like before they make the decision to get divorced. They have therapy in some aspects. So sometimes they will dismiss it and say, oh, we already have therapists. But I'm not there as a collaborative divorce coach in the process to, oh, how are things with your friends? How are things with work? How are things with your mother-in-law? That's more
Right.
therapy issues. When I'm a therapist just in my office versus the collaborative divorce team, I'm talking about whatever they want to talk about, any aspects of life, their anxiety, their depression, how they're dealing with their kids, everything. There's a myriad. But in the collaborative divorce process, this is what I explain to the clients is we're not getting into a lot of like history of the marriage or your family. That's important, and I get a background, but we're just focusing on the dynamic of the marriage that they're currently working on dissolving. And through with using my therapy skills, I try to see what kind of emotional issues they might run into during the divorce, because the divorce is obviously also an emotional, financial, and legal issue. And there's a grieving process, and there are issues while you're talking about dissolving your marriage. Right? We're all human, and we have feelings and emotions. And it's my job as the divorce coach in the collaborative process to see what I think, using my therapy skills, through that lens, what they might run into while getting divorced, what the emotional barriers might be.
And is that more for making decisions? Like if we're talking about, when someone wants to change visiting time for the children, or I want the house, no, you want the house. And are you trying to break down the emotional wall of, well, why do you want the house? And is that really what you want? Or am I misled?
Right. What's behind this? Like, do we want it as a power play? Do we want it because we're trying to gain control? And in these decisions, you're not making them unilaterally, and you're not just making them with your partner. You've got a team helping you. So it can feel like you feel out of control, and you feel like it might not be exactly what you want. And there's a lot of anxiety that goes into that. And with anxiety, people try to gain control. So sometimes they're saying, here's what I want, this is what I want. And just like you said, Carrie, I say, like, okay, why do you want the house? Like, what, is it because you want the kids to stay in it? Is it about, do you just want someone to stay in it so it's less change for your family? Like, I kind of get creative. And there are times on the meetings that we'll go into a breakout room or just in a conference room before in person, and kind of go, what's going on here? And I have to be able to read them and say, like, it feels like you're feeling really anxious. It feels like something that the person said upset you. And where's this coming from? That's my role.
Okay. And then that helps obviously so they can make more intelligent decisions as opposed to emotional
Right.
decisions.
I want them making decisions, I say, with the executive functioning part of your brain, like, right, the frontal lobe, not out of anxiety and fear. When you make those decisions necessarily aren't ones you want long term.
It's so
Or that
smart.
makes the most sense. They might not. I wanted the house. Okay, the house costs $7,000 a month to run. Okay, well, you're getting this much in spousal support or child support. That doesn't really, maybe that wasn't the best decision for you.
Right. And tell me if this is where you fit into. I was talking to this lady yesterday, the one who doesn't have the mental health professional.
Mm-hmm.
And she's every conversation she has, she'll call me and she'll say, well, my husband says I can do this, and my husband says I can't do this. And because we have this judge, he can't move out of the house, or, he won't get to see the children. Like she keeps repeating all these things she hears from him. Granted,
Mm-hmm.
I'm no attorney. I don't go into court. I don't hear what the judges say, but it just seems like the information that she's getting from him and believing is not all true. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if he's saying it to trick her or if he's saying it because his attorney says to say it. So are
Mm-hmm.
you able to step in that environment and say, wait, you no longer have to listen to what your husband tells you, and then go ahead and do
I
it?
Well, like in that situation, I would encourage her. I assume there's probably another attorney. She has another attorney. And I'd say, you know what? I would, you and your husband are certainly welcome to have conversations about it and how you want to move forward. And we encourage that. But, I would just verify all of this with your attorney to make sure, because your husband might be mishearing it from his attorney. His attorney might be misinformed. Maybe your husband's looking at all this stuff on the internet and telling you telling you these facts. So I would, your attorney is obviously is, knowledgeable, and both attorneys, especially in the collaborative process, are the client's advocates. So yes, but I think there's that in that example, there might be the old dynamic of like, oh, he's always just told me, like he's always just said how it's supposed to be, or he knows how it's supposed to be. And maybe that's how the family dynamic ran. But you
Right.
see that in a divorce, it runs the same way the marriage ran.
It does. And she was telling me all these things, and she's doubting her own intelligence, right? If
Mhm.
she doesn't know, and obviously neither one of them have ever been divorced before, so in all reality neither of them know. And even
Right.
if you were divorced before, you only know that one experience, right? Like
Totally
things can be.
different set of circumstances.
So yeah, it was interesting to keep hearing her say, all right, I'm calling you because my husband said, I could refinance right away and I could do this and he can't move. Yeah, it's just,
Right.
you want to debunk it all, but
I
yes, I
know,
just
but
wanted
there's
to.
an old dynamic there, right? Where you don't want to say, like, don't listen to your husband, ask a professional, but I think there's a gentle way of saying that, why don't you run this, you could, I'm not sure. I do not know if that's true or not. What did your attorney say? How did your attorney say that? And, sometimes it's hard because they'll say, well, I don't want to pay. I don't want to call my
Right.
attorney for every question. So I'm just going to listen to my husband or my wife.
he tells her he got this information from his attorney. I know
Right.
it's very interesting how the layperson doesn't think mental health is an issue and that stigma about it, but it seems like it's so important when you're there to like constantly rope everybody in.
Right. And it's hard to sometimes convince clients that they need a mental health professional. Usually the attorneys say, we would like to work with one. And, as part of the team, it's part of the model, but they're like, oh, it's fine. Like either, like I said, we're in therapy already, or like you said, we get along. And it's like, but have you gotten divorced before? Do you know what's involved? You don't know the road ahead. And they are usually when you're getting divorced, you're in a state of crisis. And so it's hard to be able to trust someone in a state of crisis, how they're going to feel, especially not doing it, when usually this is the
Right.
first
And
time.
you're asked to make a lot of very, very important decisions in a very emotional time.
Right.
And
Right.
typically, like you said, people don't make good decisions when they're very emotional. And then these are things that most people aren't experts in.
Right. Right. They are not. And it's your own, even if the person was a family law attorney getting divorced, it's like you still
That's
don't, there's emotion in it, for you. There isn't when you work with your clients, but it's, and in some, there've been a couple that I'm on the team, the collaborative divorce team. I'm like, oh, that went well. Like we helped kind of just keep it smooth. And there are some where it's like, oh my goodness, there's like a dynamic that's just really dysfunctional that's been going on or unhealthy, or what I see more of is a power imbalance where, this is what we're doing. And then you can see it on the team call, like, okay, that's what we're doing. She's telling me. And it's like it's my job to make sure there's, in terms of equity of decision making, and everyone knows their rights, and that they have a choice, that they have a say. So
Yeah,
it's
that's interesting.
helpful.
They probably think too that they're going to do some joint therapy together in front of the attorneys, and they're like, we don't want to do that.
I know sometimes they get into it right on the calls. They're like, well, you always did that. And this is just what it's like, okay, we are not, this isn't marriage counseling, but we have to get through that. You still have to get through it to be able to make that decision. And it's not, and also keeping, when they start getting into that mode of their old dynamic emotionally, is for me to say with the professionals on the call, like, okay, guys, like, we got to circle back. Let's take a break, because this isn't helping. We want to get you divorced. We don't, this is probably a marriage fight.
Yeah. Yeah. You have a tough job.
I enjoy it. Like I said, though, it's nice, and it's good when you have a case and they say, you know what, we thought we'd be okay, but you're right. I like that. It's like we got you through it. And like I said, the biggest hurdle is probably convincing the clients why your role is necessary.
Right. And normally there's just one of you, there's not two of you.
Right.
And
There's an old model where each person had their own divorce coach. And I think just expense wise and, double duty wise, that has changed. And there's one divorce coach. So,
yeah, that makes sense. And you're trained enough where you can go back and forth and you're
right.
not picking sides anyway.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And then sometimes one person needs your support more than the other. If there's a power imbalance, the one that's having a hard time finding their voice, I need to talk to them more.
And then you would do that in private.
Right. Usually like on our own calls, or if we're on a team meeting, just saying, hey, we're going to go into a breakout room real quick with your attorney, and just saying, this is, and kind of explaining to them, like, it just feels like you're not making the decisions. I want to make sure you're heard. Are you okay with what we've talked about? Just checking in, doing a lot of checking in.
Awesome. That's awesome. And it's better to have you do it than an attorney do it because one, they're not trained, and two, I would have to assume they're way more expensive.
Right. And the attorneys will say, this is not my area of expertise. They're like, I mean, they're trained to handle some emotional, because divorce is an emotional process, but, in terms of doing, kind of seeing what needs to be done, they're in their business divorce. Here's what we have to do mode, because that's their job, and they're good at
Right.
it.
That makes sense. And then your other business, you see private clients, and it would be
Yes.
more of what I would call the typical therapy session.
Yes, like voluntary clients that just come in, they need help with like career advice or, if they're a parent, like how to parent their child advice or, relationships, not married, I need to, just trying to figure out how to move forward and life changes and it's I my and then couples counseling. Obviously, I do the marriage counseling as well. So that's
And you're like, look where you can end up.
right, exactly. Here are all the options. It's which way is this going? So, but I like my voluntary, which is you're right, what you think of a typical therapy. You go into an office, you're like, what am I going to talk about today? What am I struggling with? That kind of thing.
And if anyone wanted to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that?
Oh gosh. I've got a website, Toby Beach Therapy. And if you look at that, I'm also on Psychology Today. And in my email and my contact information is on there. So you could just look at that and shoot me an email or shoot me a text or call.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, I thank you so much for your time. And I think you are clearing up a misconception for a lot of people. So I appreciate that.
Anytime, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
Of course. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. I'm Carri Goldring. And if you ever have any questions regarding mortgage, feel free to give me a call or send me a text message, 248-420-4524. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day.